Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 200, Nunes versus Tate. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. I'm an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can buy a couple of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on PDF at www.chrismaldon.com, or if you have an e-reader, you can buy it on Amazon.com. You can also buy my short stories and collection of short stories for just $1.99, also on my website or on Amazon.com, starting with the fantasy horror short story, The Land of the Wooden Statues, which I'm trying to make into a full novel. The horror collection, which is a collection of 3 of my horror short stories, and the fantasy fable collection, which is a collection of 4 of my fantasy fable short stories. So, onto this card. You know what? This card, honestly, it's kind of like my picks. Okay? It's kind of like the Cat Zingano fight or the Claudia Gadelha fight. Alright. It started out really strong, and then it just kind of collapsed with some good moments in between and some good fights in between. Don't get me wrong. But like my picks, I got 6 out of 6, and I started out real strong here too. First 4 fights, got them correct. I thought I was on my way to getting some pretty, decent picks. Then I 3 in a row, missed those picks. Then Velasquez wins, so that's cool. And then Aldo wins, and I'm like, okay, well, there's still a couple more fights. Cormier wins, cool, okay, cool. You know, Tate and our Hunt's gotta win one of these, right? you know, get above 50%. Nope. So yeah, and the card's kind of like that too, in a sense, where it's just kind of like, man, this is starting out strong. You had the first 3 fights, all first round finishes. Northcutt fight was just, oh, I didn't actually get to see the Northcutt fight. But like Dillashaw versus Assuncao was a good fight. I thought Gastelum versus Hendricks was a fine fight. Pena versus Zingano was alright. Then Velasquez Browne was good. I liked, on a technical level, Aldo versus Edgar. And then Cormier versus Silva and Lesnar versus Hunt were kind of grinders. You can actually argue that the Pena versus Zingano fight was kind of a grinder too. I actually like that fight though. And then like Nunes versus Tate, that was good. So you know, but yeah, I thought it kind of started strong, but started to get progressively weaker as it went along, personally, with some cool finishes. Of course, the main event had a nice finish. Velasquez versus Browne had a nice finish, but that's just how I kind of saw the card. Maybe because it didn't live up to the hype, and or I've been watching so many fights. I mean, UFC Fight Night 90, Ultimate Fighter Finale, and now this. So maybe that's why I was expecting to get blown away. I don't. So that could be it too. Bonuses. There was no Fight of the Night bonus. There's only Performance of the Night, as Amanda Nunes, Cain Velasquez, Joe Lozon, and Gegard Mousasi got 50,000 for Performance of the Night. Notes. Or things to note. The UFC now has 2 Brazilian champions after having none after RDA lost to Alvarez. They actually had no Brazilian champions. Now they got Aldo and Nunes as Brazilian champions. And yeah, I'll count an interim title as a true title. I will. Interesting also are these first round finishes in title fights. You had it here with Tate versus Nunes. You had it with Alvarez versus Dos Anjos. And then you also had it with like Rockhold versus Bisping too. So that's also some stuff to note. Let's get started. So Amanda Nunes defeated Miesha Tate by rear naked choke in the first round. Um, the common idea of this fight was that as the fight wore on, Misha Tate was more likely to win. Early, Amanda Nunes can win it. And that's pretty much what happened here. Um, Nunes always starts really strong. She is one of the more powerful strikers of the division. Arguably the most powerful striker of the division now that I think about it. Um, Tate, for all her grit, gets hit. She gets hit clean. I said in my predictions, I can see her get hit clean. I can see her get dropped. This time, though, she was not able to recover. Um, I'm kind of hedging here, but yes, in my predictions, I did say more or less that early Amanda Nunes, either round 1 or 2, was capable of winning it. After that, I'd have to favor Misha Tate. Nunes was just a much better striker than Tate. Tate managed to briefly get the fight to the ground, but it was just brief. Amanda Nunes' takedown defense and ability to get back to her feet have greatly improved since the days she was getting smothered by the likes of Sarah Delalio and Invicta FC. You know, um, so she got a lot better there. Tate, as much as she improved her striking, is still not a great striker. And someone like Nunes is just going to be very dangerous. Even when Tate fought Holm, she didn't win because she won the striking exchanges. She won because she won the grappling exchanges. Um, Nunes, though, what, BJJ Browne belt? I don't know if she's gained her black belt recently, but I know it's Browne at least. And like I said, greatly improved takedown defense. Training out of ATT, it's just something I've noticed as of late. Um, she got the biggest win of her career on the biggest card of the year. And yeah, I'm gonna say this right now. You know, one, Ronda Rousey lost to Holm. Holm then lost to Tate. Tate then lost to Nunes. And this goes for a lot of weight divisions right now too. Um, there are no dominant champions, and I really think to I'm almost gonna start calling pick'ems for title fights. Real, like honest truth, I think title fights are pretty much pick'ems at this point. Um, there's no dominant champions in women's bantamweight. You have a lot of fighters with noticeable weaknesses too. Hey, Amanda Nunes hits hard, but dude, she can't keep hitting this hard for long periods of time. It's just shown that way. She's just shown to be that way. I mean, you know, once the third round hits, she's toast. You know, happens to her in like every fight. She still has not gone 5 rounds. Now that I think about it, so um, hey, this is a knock on Nunes. She can win her next fight. I'm not saying she can't win, but that belt, you know, even if Misha Tate held on to the belt's still up for grabs. It really is. It's Ronda Rousey had weaknesses too. Her stand-up's not that good. Her defense and stand-up's not that good, and Holm exposed that. Holm's ground game obviously isn't very good. She's actually pretty hard to take down, but someone like Misha Tate was able to take her back quite easily because the problem with Holm is she didn't have much of a ground game, and it seems like her sole focus is just to get back to her feet, but she exposes her back when she gets back to her feet. Nunes, cardio, Tate, defense, you can't always be the comeback kid, it just never works that way in MMA. Eventually you're just going to lose. Um, with that said, Nunes, it's a lot of fights for her actually. Juliana Pena is on a really good win streak. They might go with Pena versus Nunes. The winner of Holm versus Shevchenko is probably one of the more logical ones, especially if Holm wins. Holm Nunes would be interesting. If Ronda Rousey returns, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with Rousey versus Nunes. Tate can also get Rousey on a return fight. They have a grudge. Zingano, who's coming off a loss, a rematch between Tate and Zingano would be cool. A loser of Holm versus Shevchenko would be interesting too. Next fight after that, Brock Lesnar defeated Mark Hunt by unanimous decision, 29-27s across the board. I agree with that scorecard. The prevailing theory here was that if the fight stayed standing, it favored Hunt, and that showed itself in round 2. And if Brock can get it to the ground, then Brock's going to win. And that is pretty much what happened. One thing that was really noticeable was that Lesnar, his physique, he just has this huge physique, right? One thing that was really noticeable with when Hunt was trying to strike his head was that as long as Lesnar just shrugged his shoulders or moved his arms up, a lot of time there were a good amount of times that Hunt's punches, if they're looping, would just hit his shoulders. Because one, Hunt's short, two, Brock is really wide. So, he had this really big shoulder that's in the way of Hunt really landing clean shots on his head. I kid you not, watch the fight. You can see, the big right hands that he was throwing actually just hits Brock's shoulders a lot of times. I thought that Hunt would actually be able to defend takedowns. He actually defended takedowns pretty well, but Brock was real bullish about getting takedowns. And once Brock had Mark against the cage, it looked like Brock can hit takedowns on him at will. Hunt really couldn't get out from the bottom if Brock didn't give him space. When Brock did give him space, Hunt was able to, he usually rolls to his stomach and then gets back to his feet. That's his way of getting back up. You see it a lot with him too. But for the most part, Brock, even in mount, was staying so heavy. He wasn't really doing real fight-ending type of striking or anything like that. He was just going for stay busy ground and pound, I guess. But this is a good win for Les. He's a freak athlete, man. Guy his size that moves that well. Yeah, that guy's a freak athlete, I don't know what happens to Lesnar. I kind of, personally, I think it'd be a good idea for him to retire after this. He's coming off a win. He's coming off a win over a top 10 guy, But yeah, good win for Lesnar. I really didn't expect it in a sense, just because Hunt was able to defend some takedowns, but not all. But I guess not all of them. And once Brock was on top, there were times that Hunt did have an answer, but for the most part, didn't have an answer. With that said, Hunt should get a Travis Browne, or excuse me, or maybe, you know what? I know that he's coming off a win, but maybe give him Derek Lewis. Just kind of get, maybe Mark Hunt is the next big task for Derek Lewis. Lesnar, excuse me, if somehow he fights again, he'd probably fight for a title. Honestly, because he's such a big draw, they'll probably give it to him. They did that with Randy Couture and Lesnar. It's Lesnar lost to Mir, he beats Heath Herring, and then gets a title shot against Randy Couture. I would not be surprised if they did the same thing with Brock Lesnar. You beat Mark Hunt. You get the winner of Stipe versus Overeem, and we're going to throw you a lot of money to take this fight. Would not surprise me to see the UFC do that. They've done business with Brock Lesnar before. They're still doing business with Brock Lesnar now. Would not surprise me if the UFC decides to, uh, you know, stay in business, stay in the Brock Lesnar business. You know. Next after that, Daniel Cormier defeated Anderson Silva by unanimous decision, 30-26s across the board. Um, this was kind of a grinder. It was, for the most part, Anderson Silva acquitted himself pretty well, especially in that third round, getting a body kick, and actually getting Cormier in trouble. This was actually some of the better Anderson that I've seen standing, in the sense that he took actually some pretty flush shots from Cormier, but also he was a lot more proactive on offense, whereas lately he's been something of a pure counterpuncher. But yeah, he was really proactive with offense, and I liked what I saw standing. But for the most part, Cormier was able to just take Anderson down pretty much at will and stay on top, do some stay busy ground and pound. Could never really get out of that half guard though. With that said, Cormier probably just gets Jones if Jones isn't available. As be the winner of Johnson versus Teixeira. Silva, he's probably gonna still stay fighting. Gotta get a money fight, and just maybe they go back to the Uriah Hall fight. But I'd like to see him get like a money fight if he can get one. I don't know who's available at 185 or 205, but there's probably some interesting fight out there for Anderson Silva. And I'd like to see Anderson's getting a lot older. I'd like to see him get a win. I think he's still capable of getting a win in the UFC. Go Anderson Silva like Shogun. Hey, that'd be pretty cool. Anderson Silva Shogun or something like that. Just a money fight. Next fight, I thought Jose Aldo defeated Frankie Edgar by unanimous decision. This was tough to score in the sense that Edgar was doing more volume but not connecting. But Jose was like committing to counters, and he didn't have a lot of volume, but every time he connected, it was really hard. And Frankie didn't seem to be able to hurt Aldo, and he seemed frustrated, especially near the end. Aldo looked fantastic. Dude, this fight makes you want to see a rematch between Aldo and McGregor. It really does. This is interesting because Aldo did not really push forward at all. He moved back a lot. And some of his pivots and movement were just insane. He was slipping punches so easily. I think a lot of the ones that probably Edgar managed to hit him with, I think Aldo actually kind of rolled with them because, man, it didn't seem like they phased him at all. The counters are so sharp from Aldo and fast, and man, he didn't even use leg kicks. I think he only threw like one or two. That's crazy. He didn't even use one of his best weapons, and he still beat Edgar and made it look pretty easy. I gotta wonder if he's reinvigorated after that loss to McGregor. I thought that it'd be either or, that he would look really bad, kind of like Renan Barros looked pretty bad after losing the title, or he's gonna look like the Aldo of old. He looks fantastic, I'm not gonna lie. I'll say this too, man. For this card, I kind of went with some I kind of went with some picks, like the Assuncao pick. This one too, where it's just kind of like, okay, I think Aldo's gonna win, but I'll pick the other guy, because I gotta stop doing that, honest truth. I just gotta stop doing that now. It's whoever I think is gonna win. That's who I should pick. Not just go for some Hail Marys just because I can. With that said, yeah, dude, Aldo versus McGregor or Holloway, um, really are the next fights that can happen. Aldo McGregor would be really cool. I really don't think Aldo's going to rush forward on McGregor like he did last time. If he just stays patient, um, I think it'd be a much better fight. Edgar, oh man, this guy just cannot win the big one at featherweight. He can't beat Jose Aldo. He's just his kryptonite. Um, I kind of wonder if, on a stylistic standpoint, because Aldo was so easily able to defend Edgar's takedowns, and Edgar had good penetration on his takedowns too. He was deep. Uh, that sounds kind of weird, but on his takedowns, Aldo was able to defend those. I kind of wonder if maybe McGregor is a better stylistic matchup than for Edgar. And maybe Edgar can win the title from McGregor. Who knows? But he can't win it from Aldo. With that said, Edgar gets Lamas, maybe Jeremy Stevens next. Um, I guess he climbs back to the top. I know him and his team has talked about moving down to 135. They said it's possible for him, and maybe he's like what 34 now. Maybe that's what he does. Maybe that's what he should do. Like, um, just because I just don't know. It might take a really long time for him to get a title shot. Next fight that, Cain Velasquez defeated Travis Browne by TKO in the first round. Pretty dominant performance from Velasquez, and it's actually pretty much what I expected. I expected him to, one, push forward a lot more, which he did. Kind of just like I get a Cain of old. Go for takedowns in the center of the cage, and if he had Travis Browne against the cage, he's not going to drop down because of the Travis Browne half elbows. He would just stick his head underneath Travis Browne's chin, and him being the taller guy, it's actually kind of advantageous for Cain Velasquez to do that and start to dirty box him when he can, and just man, Cain really commits to his strikes. That's one thing I noticed because Travis Browne's a taller guy, and the shots that dropped Travis Browne were like overhand, like big overhand rights, and you can tell Cain does like a big step forward to throw that overhand right. He really commits to his strikes, um, and I think that's how he's able to drop Browne, and then some follow up ground and pound got him into ride position. Yeah, good win for Cain, and if he can stay healthy, you know, this is this is the monster. That this is the guy that looks like he can wipe out the heavyweight division. Um, I'd like to see Cain get the winner of Verdun versus Rothwell next. You know, maybe he can be a last minute title shot. Late replacement for a title shot maybe. If that happens. Heck, maybe I'd go with Cain Velasquez versus the winner of Stipe versus Overeem. Um, wouldn't surprise me. That'd be a fresh matchup. With Browne, maybe gets Hunt or the loser of Verdun versus Rothwell. Get on to prelims. Juliana Pena defeated Kat Zingano by unanimous decision. Man, this was just so frustrating in a sense to watch because I picked Kat Zingano. But the thing that was frustrating was just how easy Kat was able to take Pena down in that first round. I mean, even at the beginning of the second, I mean, she just did some cool takedowns. Um, Made a couple tactical errors. One thing that I have to say, and I know for the most part it's better to pass guard, But I kind of have to wonder, watching the way the fight played out, if Kat Zingano should have just maybe stayed in full guard and just started raining ground and pound from there. It seems like as Kat Zingano was passing, was the time that Pena was able to make space to scramble. And, when, like, Zingano was on top of half guard, Pena was able to scramble out of the half guard position. But whenever she was in full guard, she wasn't actually able to scramble that well. Um, man, Juliana Pena, man, it's like I always underestimate her, and the reason why is that she still has the same approach to fighting. I mean, but I think it's I have to say I think it's just the weakness of the division overall that she's able to work her game as well as she can, because it's like she's a good wrestler and a good athlete. She's still a terrible striker. She still kind of just rushes in for that takedown, gets you against a cage, and works from top. That's what she does. She'll try it, and once she's on top, she tries past guard, tries to ground and pound you, get in a dominant position, and gets a finish. I mean, that's her game. I mean, that didn't necessarily happen here. I think she sweep Zingano. I think Zingano had lost position, and once she was on the bottom, she couldn't get back up. Um, Pena was able to stay on top, and then at the third round, Pena was able to get an easy takedown on Zingano. Um, and that's the thing with Pena. I keep underestimating her just because, like, she's improving at what she's doing, but what she's doing is like the same thing. And I would have thought that someone higher up in this division would be able to do something against that. But you know what? I think Ronda Rousey's actually showed that, like, the division just as a whole, there's so many weaknesses in the fighters. Um, yeah, that's taking nothing away from Pena, because honestly, like I said, she's kind of just doing the same thing she always does. Even like the way she tries to get takedowns. But it's a lot cleaner the way she's doing it. She's more effective about it now. It's a little less sloppy, and her top game's really good. Her top game's just really good. She's hard to get off of. Once you're on the bottom, she is really tough to get off from the bottom. With that said, title shot, could be in the works for Juliana Pena. Um, against Nunes. Like I said, this belt's up for grabs. I'd probably favor Nunes, but it's the same thing. If Pena can get past the second round, maybe she gets, maybe the takedowns come a little easier, gets the win on Nunes, or maybe Nunes just blasts her in the first and or second round and defends her takedowns. I don't know. If not her, Pena gets like Sarah McMahon, or the winner of Holm versus Shevchenko. Zingano should get the loser of Holm versus Shevchenko. Maybe like a Marion Renault. Who else is coming off a loss here? Let's see. Is it just no? Maybe like the loser of I versus Kohea. They're fighting, right? Yeah. Um, Maybe someone like that. I don't. I mean, there's a lot of fights for her, to be honest with you. I just can't really think of good fights for her at this moment. So right after that, Kelvin Gastelum defeated Johnny Hendricks by unanimous decision. This one stings because I have finally, the streak of picking Johnny Hendricks fights correct is now gone. I Man, I had a really good thing going with Johnny Hendricks. It's like I cannot pick this guy wrong. You know, win or lose, I can. It's like I couldn't pick this guy. You know, like I always picked him correctly, and this is the one fight. That streak is now broken, and also Johnny Hendricks is broken. I don't know what it is. This guy just does not look good. Remember when his left hand was dropping everybody? You know, now it's not, and he hit Gastelum pretty clean with it too. Um, some things about Johnny Hendricks. One, he's good at getting takedowns against a cage, but he's not the greatest at holding opponents down. He's really not. And also, the opponents he's fighting just have really good scrambling abilities as it is. Two, Johnny Hendricks he's good when he moves forward, but he moves backwards a lot. Um, and I think his chin is deteriorating. I think his cardio gets worse and worse. You know, someone said that maybe it's all these constant bad weight cuts, and it's just greatly draining his body. You know, because it seems to just happen over and over, and this looks like it's affecting his performance. He missed weight here too, and his cardio didn't look that great. When he pushed forward and went first, he was actually able to connect with combinations. The only problem is, for some reason, he couldn't. He had no answer for the 1-2 from Kelvin Gastelum. Um, and he really didn't have much answer for the forward pressure of Kelvin Gastelum either. Doesn't help that Johnny Hendricks, like I said, when he moves forward, he's awesome. When he moves back, his opponent gets better of him almost all the time. You know, certain moves from Johnny Hendricks look to be gone too. I remember he used to have these really nice clinch uppercuts. I don't see him anymore. You know, his wrestling is like not as prevalent as it used to be. I know it's harder to be a wrestler in MMA, especially at the higher levels, where everyone can defend takedowns and or get back to their feet when they're taken down. Also, like Kevin Gastelum's a wrestler himself, wrestle boxer himself. So you got a lot of guys with wrestling backgrounds too. This is a good win for Kevin Gastelum. He's good. Man, there's a lot to like about him. There's always been a lot to like with Kevin Gastelum. He's always had a good chin. When his boxing's on point, he has a good jab and a good 1-2. He wrestles well, both offensively and defensively. And he's constantly moving forward, With that said, Gastelum gets a winner of like Story versus Cerrone, maybe a Gunnar Nelson, maybe Dong Hyun Kim. Hendricks can get like a Safadine, or maybe the loser Cerrone versus Story. So after that, Tate Dillashaw defeated Rafael Assuncao by unanimous decision. This is like one of those fights where it's like, next time, moving forward when I do predictions, I shouldn't just kind of throw out random, like Hail Mary predictions. It's like, this is kind of one of them. There were upsets on this fight card. I mean, they were there. Lesnar and Tate, or Lesnar and Nunes, I believe were upsets. I believe Aldo was actually an underdog too. Um, that's the thing. I'm. This wasn't the most egregious pick of mine, because one thing that I was saying about this fight was that Rafael Assuncao has a really good counter-striking game. That's where he can get Dillashaw. And he actually got Dillashaw quite a bit with the counters. It's just Dillashaw was getting him a lot more. He's just doing a lot more damage, a lot more volume, and he was able to evade a good amount of Assuncao's strikes as well. I'd like to see Dillashaw versus Cruz 2 after, another win from Dillashaw. I think Dillashaw should probably get like a Cody Garbrandt Brian Caraway or the winner of Lineker versus McDonald. Assuncao can get like Aljamain Sterling, Tommaso Almeida, or maybe the loser of Lineker versus McDonald. Um, I think at this point the only ones that can unseat Cruz are probably going to be Dillashaw. Um, that's maybe Garbrandt with a little more experience. Maybe Lineker if, but I don't know. I'm not really super confident with that, but Dillashaw looks like he might be able to do that. Unseat Cruz. Next right after that, Sage Northcutt defeated Enrique Marin by unanimous decision. I didn't get to see the fight. It was on FS2 apparently. So I heard that like Northcutt was in trouble. He facing adversity and whatnot, but so I ended up getting the win. You know, Sage Northcutt is a guy that needs to fight in a better camp. He also needs to he needs to go back to the regionals, to be honest with you. um, you know, it seems like he can only beat these like really low level guys, and even against these guys, he kind of has some problems. Just more lower level guys for him. Excuse me. Okay, on the Fight Pass prelims, Joe Lozon defeated Diego Sanchez by TKO in the first round. Chins don't last forever, and as durable as you may be, Diego Sanchez has been shown to be a really durable guy. The guy takes so many clean hits and has been in so many wars. It's gonna catch up to him, and it did. It did today. You know. At this point, Lozon and guys like Sanchez should just fight more guys within their circuit. Like I don't want to say senior circuit per se, but just like the veteran circuit at this point. And because that's pretty much what they're really good for at this point. Maybe test some young guy too. I don't know, Kevin Lee, Joe Lozon or something. I don't know. Joaquim Silva, Joe Lozon. That works. So after that, Giga Musasi defeated Thiago Marta Santos by knockout in the first round. This was a great performance from Musasi and showed a lot of things I like about his skill set. 1, I like his jab. 2, his chin. 3, he actually has an underrated offensive takedown ability. He has a judo base, and he also has he's always had good ground and pound. He's actually won quite a few fights with his ground and pound, but he's been really good about posturing up and raining down ground and pound. That's just one of his things. This was a big step up for Thiago Marta Santos. He's still a top 11 to 15 guy, and he just fought a better fighter. But I think Santos can still. Musasi said that he's a guy that's dangerous, but no one knows him. But he's probably capable of beating top 10 guys, and I gotta agree with that. With that said, Musasi should probably get like a Robert Whitaker or Derek Brunson next. He's actually on a win streak, so that's good for Musasi. I think he's just like one fight away from a title shot. Musasi Bisping would be pretty cool actually, and Santos and gets a loser of Leites versus Kamosi and get like Rafael Natal next. And finally, Jim Miller defeated Takanori Gomi by TKO in the first round. Not much to say about this fight. Miller catches a kick, gets a takedown from that, takes it back, does work. That's it. Gomi has been done forever. Wouldn't surprise me if he's cut. And Jim Miller just lives to fight another day. Like Lozon and Sanchez, his role in the UFC should probably be fighting guys who are more veterans and or testing new prospects. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 200. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And you can check out my works on www.chrismaldon.com or on amazon.com if you have an e-reader, such as my first novel, The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom, or my short stories, like The Land of the Wooden Statues, the Horror Collection, or the Fantasy Fable Collection. So, that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.